These were just a bunch of skinny kids just come out of the Depression, and they felt somewhat complex about being called the heroes from Iwo Jima when they didn't feel heroic at all. They felt the heroes were all the men that were still out there fighting, and the men who died on the island.
John Bradley was a great man. I mean, hardworking, honest, saw things very simply, was very fair, just a decent man. One of the key aspects to Doc Bradley is he kind of was a perfectionist, and he knew the contents of his Unit 3 kits, his medical kits, inside and out, and blindfolded. He could take them apart and put them back together and knew where everything was. So even in the midst of gunfire, in the middle of a battle, he was able to tune it out and just focus, have that singular focus on what his task at hand was, which was saving someone's life or doing the best he could.
Doc is just always involved with the horrors of watching people die. Doc and Ira kind of share the similar holding of emotions. It's like we wear it on our sleeves. There's a surface that you'll always see.
Doc Bradley kind of took a father figure role, or like a big brother role towards Iggy. You know, he wanted to look after him.
Iggy! Iggy!
What actually happens to Iggy is pretty horrific, and it's something that scars Doc Bradley for the rest of his life.
Ira Hayes is just a classic war hero who doesn't know how to deal with his emotions and the horrors of war and having to bring it back to reality.
He's pretty damaged. It's safe to say suffering from a pretty heavy post-traumatic stress syndrome, although there really wasn't such a thing at the time. We didn't, it hadn't been diagnosed yet. We didn't really know what it was.
He's struggling with alcoholism and somewhere he doesn't want to be, and he's drinking to numb the pain, and he's making a jerk out of himself a lot of the time, really.
Put the goddamn chair down and let's go.
He was a born leader, and yet he just stayed in the shadows. He was one of the best soldiers in the Marine Corps, survived 3 of the bloodiest campaigns, and yet never was promoted, never wanted that sort of limelight.
Doc is someone I think who's always respected Ira and understood him maybe a little differently than everyone else in terms of seeing his sensitivities and how much the war, what kind of a toll it took on him. Watching him sort of destroy himself through alcohol and depression and all of these other things that were a part of Ira's problems.
I felt once he released the information to Harlan Block's father, it was his last secret. Now he would he'd let go of living his life.
Rainey Gagnon, he's from New Hampshire. He's an only child. Apparently his mom was out pushing him in a baby carriage one morning and ran into his father with another woman pushing a baby carriage. So his dad was getting around a little apparently, and his mom left him immediately, and he was raised by his, single mom, basically. She would bring him to work, and, he was her little treasure. I think his mom sort of laid out a path for him. He was a bit of a ladies' man. The book puts it that a lot of the guys were a little iffy on him, but if they wanted to pick up chicks, they went with him when they were on leave because he was, good at that. And that's a skill. So anyway, he ends up with a woman named Pauline. The way we like to think of it is that he kind of went from one woman, his mother sort of telling him this is how it's going to be, to the next one, which was Pauline. I mean, he was 19 when this all happened to him. And to me, he was just a kid trying to make good, and do what was expected of him and asked of him. Out of the 3 guys, I think Rainey could be perceived as maybe the most fallible in some way.
Mike Strank, who was Czechoslovakian born, he emigrated to America when he was 3 years old. He was born on November 10th, which is the Marine Corps birthday. He was in Bougainville, one of the bloodier campaigns, and in World War II. So he was a veteran among these young men. He was only 23 years old.
The average age was only 19, so all the other guys called him the old man, and he was staff sergeant, but he got a lot of combat experience before he was finally killed.
He was the type of leader that I think inspired his men to dig deeper because of the amount that he gave in the field. And he promised them all that he would bring them home to their mothers. He died there when he was 24 years old. He was hit by an incoming mortar which came off of one of their own ships.
Harlan's from Westco, Texas. It's where he grew up, where he went to high school, and then he enlisted right out of high school. Growing up, he kind of was the rebel in the family in the sense that they were a strong Seventh-day Adventist family. He made choices that ended up leading him to go to public school and not the Seventh-day Adventist school. He played football, which was on the Seventh-day Adventist Sabbath. So a lot of his decisions as a young man started to set him apart from his family and make him who he was eventually to become.
Harlan Block was wanting to be a duplicate of Mike Strank. Basically, it's like you're taking Superman and there's Superboy in the process. Harlan always was just trying to measure up to Mike.
Harlan was a corporal, so he was next in command. Mike wouldn't bathe barefooted. He'd wear his boots when he'd take a shower.
That makes about as much sense as you showering with your shoes on.
And so would Harlan, everything he'd do, the way he wore his helmet. And I think he saw a confidence that Mike Strank instilled in the men, and I think he wanted to be able to do the same thing.
Franklin Runyon Sousley. He's from Hilltop, Kentucky. He's 19 years old. Very fun-loving, very happy-go-lucky. Provided a lot of entertainment for the rest of the guys because he was kind of a younger brother to them, I think, and they picked on him a lot. But it was all good-naturedly, and he knew that. He was just terribly gullible, which everybody else enjoyed taking advantage of.
Franklin is about the youngest and probably the least worldly of the guys in the platoon. You know, he's in awe of everything. Everything's exciting and new to him, like it is when you're 19.
He's the young runt of the litter. The guys have a lot of fun at his expense.
Ira and Franklin, the book says, was the most unlikely friendship because Franklin was very, very outgoing, very upfront, constantly joking around, while Ira was very reserved and very serious all the time. But they really hit it off for some reason. I feel a sense of responsibility to do justice to him and to his family. I think that we all feel a huge sense of responsibility because these guys are American icons and American heroes.
There were 6 guys who put up the flag in the famous photo. 3 of them were killed on Iwo Jima, you know, within a week after putting that flag up. It's one of those photographs that you know it the second somebody mentions it. It's like, when was the first time you heard about Santa Claus, or the first time you saw a picture of Elvis? Like, it's one of those images that's just there in your brain that you can't do anything about. It's like you can't even fathom when the first time you saw it was.
Yeah, it was in every newspaper that I saw as a kid. I was just a kid, but I delivered newspapers and did all that stuff. I was very familiar with that photograph.
Everyone knows the photo, but few people know the actual circumstances of the photo and the story around the photo and the reality behind the Bond tour. And it was the most successful Bond tour in American history.
The real heroes are dead on that island. We'd appreciate it if you bought bonds in honor of them. Thank you.
The Mighty Seventh Bond Drive, as they called it, which was really, these 3 guys were sort of the focal point of this bond drive. We may not have been able to keep fighting the war without it.
This bond drive where they raised $26 billion in 3 months in 1945 to finish the war in the Pacific.
I think that America was definitely fed up with the war. They didn't have the stomach for it anymore, and it was a photograph that inspired the public to dig a little deeper. You know, it represented success, freedom. You know, it represented heroism.
It's kind of almost like the birth of this celebrity And it's making celebrities out of people who don't really feel that they are celebrities. And you put them up in front of thousands of people, Times Square completely jammed, and so you can see what it put the pressure it would put on these young men. In other words, they lived at the high end of celebritydom, and then of course as soon as the war was over, it was boom, and everything turned off, and they had to go back and just be regular guys again. That was very difficult for them.
Just wait till tonight when there's thousands of cheering people in the stands. It's lit. It'll look a hell of a lot better.
The whole Bond tour becomes a very trying experience for all three of the guys.
Pretend the other three guys are with you.
The dead guys.
It wasn't as easy to have everybody know your face back then, and yet these guys were three of the most famous people in America. It's fascinating to think about that, and the overnight change for them, you know, and how hard that must have been, from shooting at another human being to shaking hands and kissing babies, and what a thing to have to reconcile.
When you come from Iceland and you're doing all these horrific moments, and then you're in the Rose Bowl, standing on top of this fake mountain, me, Ryan, and Jesse looked at each other going, man, this is ridiculous that these guys had to do this. When, like last week, they're just watching their closest friends die. How they were able to do it.
It was a terribly traumatic time for them, and how shocking this transition is for them.
Mike was a hero, but I think that he'd be ashamed of me, seeing me the way I am.
Ira, you got a visitor.
So you know the deal, you've seen the picture of him. Yeah. He caught no surprise.
The story of Ira Hayes was once told in a movie years ago called The Outsider, but it was played by Tony Curtis. And though it wasn't a bad little film, we had the audacity to get a real North American Indian to play Ira Hayes. We got Adam Beach, who is terrific.
It's the first time that I ever get to represent a Native American, shown as a human being with real emotions, as opposed to playing a stereotype, you know, the stoic Indian.
He didn't serve me. I don't make the rules. We don't serve Indians.
He's breathing. Mike, can you hear us? Mike.
The medics were always the mother hen of the unit. They always were looking out for the guys and making sure they had their bandages or were taking enough water in, you know, had seasick pills. Ryan picked up on that sensibility immediately, and we never went to the set medic when we had problems. We went to Ryan, and he always had everything that we needed in his medical pouches. It immediately connected us to this brotherhood and how that relationship dynamic worked in the field. You know, we didn't call each other by our Christian names. We used each other's characters' names. They called me Sergeant, and I called him Doc, and it immediately put you there.
Barry had done Saving Private Ryan, so it was like he had been through it before, and he could say to us, you know, well, this is how you should do that with your equipment. He had more experience on war movies.
He's a quite good actor, and is a very hard-working guy, a diligent actor, like all these guys were. They were a terrific bunch of people, but he's probably a little bit more experienced than the others, and the guy he plays is a guy who was a little bit more experienced.
I just would make sure that I showed up on set a half an hour before everyone else. Sometimes I'd have all my gear on, I'd be in full wardrobe and makeup a half an hour before anyone even arrived. Just because I was playing the sergeant of these men and showing them wherever they needed to go and how to work their weapon if they needed their boots tied. Whatever needed to be done, I was there for them.
Jesse, I had seen a few things, and I liked his acting very much, and his resemblance to the real René Gagnon was kind of uncanny.
Jesse's interpretation of Rainey was the sensitivity that he brought to that character, exactly the way Rainey was, very sensitive and very introspective. and not at all sort of the typical macho soldier type, you know.
I was just a runner. That's it. I also spoke to Rainey's son a few times to try to get sort of a more personal and accurate view, you know, from the son's point of view. I felt the responsibility to portray him as, I don't want to say as accurately as I could, but at least be armed with that information, because I think there's a degree to which you should be allowed and even embrace the idea of creative license when you're trying to interpret somebody who really existed, because you're never going to be them. So you try too hard, you're just going to drive yourself crazy.
28th will land here at Green Beach. The 8th Ammo Company will land here to resupply. Suribachi's guns are the biggest problem. They can hit any point on the island.
Joe is only 19. He is the true age of those guys that were out there. Even though he was the younger of some of the other guys, his work ethic was every bit as good as the other guys.
No, I didn't hear nothing about no masturbating papers.
There are quite a few things in the script where the guys are picking on me, and those were really fun to do. Those scenes were a lot of fun, and it kind of followed us back home for a little bit.
Oh, now you're just having fun with me.
It's interesting how that relationship dynamic evolved too, because there's another opportunity for an actor to have an ego about the character he's playing and not really want to be made fun of and sort of be the brunt of jokes, but he embraced it and took on that role note for note the way this man was.
I got in shape before beginning the picture, and the thing about Harlan is he was a state-ranked football player. His entire senior class that played football, they all enlisted together. So he was in great shape before he even went to boot camp. So I thought it was pretty important to get in as good a shape as I could get in.
The movie completely honors these young Marines and the people who sacrifice so much for war, but it also says in a very unapologetic way that, you know, war is hell, first and foremost. We live in such a completely divided world now, you know, and to be reminded that there was a time only 50, 60 years ago when the entire country, half of the world, were united, you know, against a common enemy.
I would love for people to understand the hardships that those soldiers had in the war, but also understand that America as a whole can obviously come together and make a lot of change if they put their minds to it.
I feel a lot of responsibility to uphold some kind of honor for the guys that were actually there, and especially the guys that never made it home off of Iwo Jima.
To be able to explore what these guys did and what they went through is something that's kind of unfathomable to me. I mean, the sheer terror that you must experience when landing on that beach, when mortars start going off around you, machine gun fire starts cutting people down all around you.
Franklin! Fine, all right.
Somewhere, it will spark a conversation between a grandchild and a grandparent about that experience, and those stories will be passed on. That's where the difference can be made. Those stories will live on through the generations, and we'll remember the effort and the lives that were lost to preserve the freedoms that we have today.
I would have been more than glad to die for this war effort, for World War II. It was so obvious what we were fighting and why we were fighting and what was at stake. I think modern wars, you know, from Korean to Vietnam on, it's been less clear what the goal is and how to achieve it. It's not quite as cut and dried as I think this war was. So the flag and what it represents and what my grandfather has fought for in this era is everything that is right and good.